Welcome everyone. Thank you once again for joining our podcast. This is our Albinism podcast, and I'm your host, Okere Harrison Joel. In this particular segment, we are still continuing on the topic of synergies and collaborations. For those that missed out on our previous episode with Grace Pelly, please just follow the link on the screen just below there, and I don't have a listen. It was quite an insightful conversation. Well, today we are joined by a friend and colleague in the same fight for inclusion and human rights, Madame Epodoi. And two, we also have Namutebi Olive, standing in as the Executive Director, Albinism Umbrella. We continue on the topic of synergies and collaborations as we had previously. This is part 2. And in this particular segment, we want to bring out, for those, I still want to explain, for those that may not know what IAAD is. And of course, we have been engaging so many stakeholders in the past few weeks in regard to albinism awareness altogether. So, still on the same topic, today we are focusing on the people behind the curtain, doing the heavy lifting on ground. And that is why I'm joined today by the two lovely ladies, Madame Epodoi and Olive Namutebi. I'll let them introduce themselves. Please, thank you and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Harrison. Thank you, Joel. Good to be here.
Okay. So, I think let me focus on them direct. Okay? Welcome to Albinism podcast once again.
Thank you.
I don't know if I got your name, Madam, very well.
Yes.
Okay. And thank you. And this is Olive Namutebi. We all know this face. If you do not know this face, please let us know early enough. So, Olive, this relationship you have with Madame Epodoi, it has gone past, I would say, colleagues. You are now friends. For the past, I want to say, 8 years, right? You have had quite something fruitful, especially between not just the two of you, but also the organizations you represent altogether. Could you take us back memory lane? Let me start with Madame Epodoi. When did you meet, or what was your first encounter with her? I see the smile. Take us through your first encounter with Olive. I know she's quite a personality.
Yes.
Yes, so, I don't know. Take us back memory lane.
So, first encounter with OE was in 2017 when I joined the OECHR office in Uganda. And that was when we were planning and strategizing on how to support disability in the country. So she came up with this proposal supporting persons with albinism and doing strategic work on albinism in Uganda. So that was my first encounter. She came up with the concept. Yes.
Olive, should I say the same or you have a different story?
I have a different story, not for her per se, but my first encounter with the Office of Human Rights.
Yes.
It was in 2015, I think around May, so to speak. The previous year, the UN Human Rights Council had declared June 13th as the International Albinism Awareness Day. So this was going to be the first time that it is celebrated, and the right place to run to are the authors of the declaration. So here we were, we didn't know nothing, but we knew it was a big milestone for persons with albinism.
Yeah.
So fast forward, paperwork running left, right, and center, and there are two big people that came on that day, and the speaker was the guest of honor, Honorable, the former speaker, Rebecca Kadaga, and Dr. Uchena was the country representative who had just come 4 days in the country. Guess what we did? We walked from Centenary Park to Uganda Museum with him, with the UN cars. Can you imagine how it felt?
So, Florence,
Yes, please.
after that encounter and get to know who Madame Olive is, the character, especially the character, what inspired you to, I don't know, just fall in love with her work and maybe support it? What inspired you?
So, absolutely, what inspired me was one, um, we have the international legal framework that we implement in different field and presence as an office. So, since, like she had mentioned, that in 2015, the Human Rights Council had put in place this international day, then had also put in place the independent expert on the protection of human rights of persons with albinism, the former Miss Ero Ignosa. So as an office, we were passionate to already start doing work, broadly, of course, on disability, but albinism also because it was a new concept, 2 years old at the time. People didn't understand it, so it was also kind of a passion. Then secondly, what also inspired me was the fact that we had just had the Sustainable Development Goals in place, and Uganda had actually chaired the Sustainable Development Goals at the time. So we're like, okay, persons with albinism, it's a new concept. These are people left behind. So we started really a roller coaster around work on albinism and disability broadly. And
Now to you, Olive. Why UN Human Rights Office? I know you won't ask, you won't tell me why not. Okay, but were you recommended? Was it advice? Take us through what transpired. What led you to the UN office? Because this relationship is one that has lasted 8 years.
Yes.
So I believe something transpired.
Well, first of all, by then, albinism was not a disability, and as a constituents, we're looking for where to belong, you know. And UN Human Rights came in so handy of, wow, they have recognized us, that we too matter, that we too are human beings. So it seems natural that I can't say I was referred by the ministry, no, because I knew in the government space, albinism didn't have any table to be talked about. But now that they had authored as a body that inclusion, we naturally went to them.
Okay, nice. So, Florence.
yes, please.
Does Albinism umbrella fit in the kind of bracket of organizations you support, or what is the criteria, or which kind of organization should you actually work with as the Human Rights Office?
Okay, so as the Human Rights Office, our mandate is quite broad. So we do a lot of strategic work to domesticate the international legal frameworks. So albinism umbrella and the disability civil society organizations fit in as far as the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities is concerned, and of course other regional international instruments. Then of course also nationally we have our constitution that promotes human rights in chapter 4. So we work with different ministries, departments and agencies depending on the thematic pillar. Then we also work with civil society organizations as long as they are advancing human rights work. So albinism umbrella came in handy, and also other civil society organizations of persons with albinism around the country. So it fit in well. Why? Especially because these are people who are really left behind as far as the SDGs is concerned. So it was very important for us to work with civil society organizations as well. And also, of course, as a learning, as an office, we know that when it comes to strategic work, you can't do it alone. So it's very important to work with different MDAs, civil society organizations, members of the academia who are key when it comes to study and research. And of course, you know that also when we do strategic work, evidence research is very key to guide us through. So that's why we really worked with the albinism umbrella and other civil society organizations and partners.
You brought out something important. Actually, it brings down the umbrella of collaboration.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So, are there other UN agencies or national institutions you've actually worked with, and what has been their contribution?
Oh yeah, we have worked with the UN agencies, because as the UN we also deliver as one. We have a UN strategic output that we all contribute to. this year we have, it's called the Cooperation Framework. So it has different areas of contribution. So we've worked with the Resident Coordinator's Office, we've worked with the UN Women, UNFPA, UNAIDS, World Health Organization, and many others, because we believe in working together as well. We are a team at that strategic level of the United Nations. Then when it comes to the national strategic institutions, we've mainly worked with the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, National Council for Persons with Disabilities, the Equal Opportunities Commission has been very instrumental. Then we have the Uganda Human Rights Commission as well. Then of course we have Ministry of Health has been key in our advocacy work, because albinism also has a health component to it. We've worked with the Cancer Institute when it comes to our advocacy. The local governments are key, because of course, you know, like Uganda, our budgets are bottom-up approach. So doing advocacy for the people left behind, like albinism capacity building with the local government, was very important. Then, of course, we've worked with the National Planning Authority, has also been key, being a planning body, and of course, Office of the Prime Minister. Yes, at that political level. Then, yes, we have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well, because as the UN, Ministry of Foreign Affairs is our entry body, so we work with them in different capacities. So basically, I think those are some of the institutions we've worked with. Yeah.
Okay, to pose the next question, I don't know how you're going to answer it, but I believe each of you has something different to offer. But I want to ask, in this 8-year friendship or relationship, there's a particular achievement or a particular project you hold so dear to yourselves. I don't know, as an organization or as someone that participated. You know, there's something different between carrying out an activity and actually being part of it.
Yes.
You understand? So, to Olive and to Florence, what is that particular project you say, you look back and say, Olive?
Can we have more than one?
It is okay. Please. I'm all ears.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so why I requested for more than one, because we've had one on albinism, then we've had one, which I think is also very important, on disability broadly. So maybe I could start with the one on albinism. One of the most important item, I think, would be the National Action Plan on albinism. Why? Because when we started advocacy work on albinism in 2015, and then 2017, when I later on joined the office, persons with albinism at the time wanted something that would make human rights of persons with albinism, the protection of human rights of persons with albinism, reach on the ground. So along the way, as we started discussions, advocacy, nationwide consultations with civil society organizations and national institutions relevant to work on disability, some persons with albinism wanted a law, an independent law on albinism, others wanted a national action plan. But then at around 2018, 2019 at the time, we were having the 2006 Persons with Disabilities Act being reviewed and amended. So when we consulted, rigorous consultations through the National Task Force of Civil Society Organizations of Albinism, we said, okay, let's go for a national action plan. And the beauty was with that is that even the independent expert at the time, Ero, came to support the process. Yes, she flew in. She flew in at the time with because we were working together with Open Society Initiative for Eastern Africa. So for me, I think that was a twink in the eye, because she shared the experiences and then the global perspective. Then she supported the process, which I think was very important. So, but the decision was purely for these organizations of. So anyway, eventually we decided that let's go for an app on albinism. So we developed one, and yes, good enough. It was adopted last year and launched.
Congratulations.
Yes, that is as far as albinism is concerned. So what strikes about the NAP also is that it has the input from the regional context. The African Commission developed the regional action plan on albinism in Africa. So it also informed the Ugandan NAP. So I think it's very important because the development of the regional NAP also went through a rigorous process. That was, it was done by the then expert, the Ero Ignosa. So I think once it implemented, it will really promote further the human rights of persons with albinism. So for me, that really strikes it strikes the work we've done, and I think it's very key. And I believe that resources will be allocated to have it implemented. Then on the broader context, disability broadly, the document that I think was very important that the Office of the High Commissioner supported is the periodic report to the convention, to the committee on the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Why? Because in around 2012, Uganda submitted its initial report to the committee. The committee considered it, and then in 2016, Uganda got concluding observations. And albinism was also raised. There were a number of concluding observations on the protection of the human rights of persons with disability. I mean, persons with albinism, non-discrimination issues, So working on that as well, the periodic report, for me was important because it reiterated a lot about albinism and, of course, disability broadly. So we supported the Ministry of Gender through the National Council for Persons with Disability, do a nationwide consultations to come up with the periodic report, which was submitted by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Uganda in Feb this year to the committee. So we hope that in the next 3-4 years, depending on when the committee sits and reviews the Ugandan report, I think we will get good concluding observations that will take disability broadly forward and, of course, albinism.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. I don't know, Oli, do you have others?
Yes, of course, the NAP
Okay.
is a big standalone. I also say two things, that the NAP, I should say, I don't know what came first, but no, the situation analysis report.
Yes.
For us, and even at Albinism umbrella, one of the pillars is we really love research because we are dealing with a condition that is grossly misunderstood. There is no information. So how else can we advance knowledge and awareness without information? So when the UN came and supported the situation analysis, and it unearthed so many things. For instance, Uganda has over 52 tribes. There is a myth in each tribe about albinism.
Yes.
I'm like, okay. Now, just that information is showing you the direction to go. So for me, I really hold on to that paper so greatly. And of course, really the 8-year IAAD, I can't underestimate that. Today, things are different. So the situation analysis, of course, the NAP, being that it was adopted by the government, and even as space has allowed that, they've really drafted like a user-friendly advocacy tool, the public report. So I really hold that so dear that this will go a long way in helping create awareness about albinism.
Inspiring project.
Yes.
From NAP to, wow, it's been a long 8 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if I may chip in there, so what happened is that when we started work on albinism, we needed to understand what is this, what is that, including persons with albinism themselves did not know, are we persons with disability? Do we have human rights? So the situation analysis brought out those issues because it was a nationwide consultative process, and it made persons with albinism understand that yes, we are and we are entitled to this. And like the public report Olive refers to, it was now intended to demystify the myths that were brought out in the situation analysis. So it has a juxtaposition of the myths and what actually persons with albinism are, as far as the international normative framework is concerned and our laws in Uganda. So when you read it, if you do not know anything about albinism, you get to understand. And it's simplified, it's pictorial in nature, it's short. So yes, I think that makes it a third
Big project. There are many.
Yes, there are many, yes, but I think we
Once you look back and say yes.
yes, absolutely.
Yes. But still on the same findings, the situation analysis on albinism in Uganda, it states that albinism remains, should I say, a neglected disorder in Uganda, and there is no particular national program in place to answer to issues that are unique to persons with albinism. So I just want to ask, what is Uganda doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? What has to be done right? I don't know, is it an ambiguous question, or we can see how to...
It's not really an ambiguous question, because what I think Uganda is doing a lot as far as disability interventions are concerned. But of course, you know that strategic work is progressive. It's step by step. Then also human rights is a concept that keeps evolving. And as it evolves, we start to understand what it is. So albinism is a recent concept. 2015, the resolution is passed. Then, of course, we start advocacy work. We're advocating, but yes, we don't know who we are, but we know that we are here and we have rights. So I think Uganda is doing a lot. First, there's the legal framework is there. We have the constitution. Then, of course, now we have the Persons with Disabilities Act that recognizes albinism in the Schedule 3 as a disability. That is something to celebrate. Before 2020, when the act was promulgated, we didn't know about albinism. But when we did advocacy, it was adopted, which is kudos really to the government of Uganda. Then, of course, we have the institutional framework, Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, the Disability Department has been very, very instrumental. Technically, they have been fabulous, and kudos really to them. And then the political heads, I don't want to forget the political heads of Ministry of Gender. They have been very instrumental. They have been strong allies as far as not only disability but albinism is concerned. I don't want to forget the legislature, the government of Uganda. One of the strong institutions we've had is Parliament. The former Speaker, Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, was really a champion for persons with albinism and disability broadly. So, and then of course the National Council for Persons with Disabilities has also been very instrumental. Why? Because they have representatives on the ground at the district local governments. Yes. So when you go to do work on disability, albinism on grounds, you have a focal person, and so National Council for Persons with Disabilities has also been instrumental. I don't want to forget Equal Opportunities Commission. Those have been amazing, and we've really promoted work on albinism with them. Every time you call them, they are just ready to take on. Then broadly, even other ministries, because the structure is such that different ministries have technical representatives of disability as well. So those representatives have really supported this process. So I want to say that Uganda has done a lot. It's still work in progress. We are going somewhere. But I must say that from the time we were in 2015, yes, to date, great strides have been done, taken by Uganda government really to, promote disability work and albinism broadly. And of course now to crown it all, we had a national action plan last year on albinism.
Yes.
So there's a lot of work that is going on. A lot more is yet to be done, but yeah.
Wow. Now to you, Oli. There's another study, actually, it's called Enhancing Equality and Encountering Discrimination Against Persons with Albinism in Uganda. And it says that children and students with albinism face several challenges while accessing education or educational services. I don't know if you can broaden that a bit, like explain to us what particular challenges they actually go through as children, because I think it was Ero or someone important said albinism in the African context is just so heavy for a child to actually understand. Okay, so shed light on what these challenges could be.
Yeah, just picking it from there, I almost just remember my childhood days, you know. Indeed, it's a heavy load for a child of just to play on your imagination of this child who's born to two dark-skinned parents and they are white, and they don't know why they look the way they are. Fortunately, children don't know how to discriminate. Fortunately. But as they grow and interact with society, by the time they are going to school, they know they are different. You know, they are calling them names. Unfortunately, many of even the parents can't explain this to children, that, you know, for you look different because of ABCD. Why? Most often when a child is born, the family disintegrates. So even by the virtue that there is no parental support, it is heavy enough, you know. Either you are raised by a grandparent or some distant relative, or a single mother or a single father. You know, it's just the recent research that showed Western region tops in couples that have at least stayed together. But the rest of the country, when a child is born, you part ways. So when this child goes to school, for the few that have gone to, because many have actually not gone to school, albinism comes with a challenge of visual challenge, because we don't see far. Now in a huge class, and most of the parents of persons with albinism are really poor, below the poverty line. Thanks to the government that we have universal primary education. So the best they could do is to enroll this child. And the numbers are big, we all know. So now this little child, let's say 4 years or 5, in 100 children, and you're the only different one, you can imagine the bullying that takes place, you know. And again, it is worsened by some teachers who don't even want the child to be near, or they have their own beliefs. Like I told you, 52 tribes, each one has their own belief. So that burden, many of us drop out of school because of bullying. Because I can't see. Then you look at a 5-year-old, and again our research shows that children walk up to an average of 3 kilometers to the nearest primary school. Now there is fear of the sun, because most of them come back like at 1. Then 2, these ritual kidnaps are still there, ritual sacrifices, stroke kidnaps. So for a child with albinism in Africa, honestly, it's a big load, a heavy load.
Wow. So just to go back to the National Action Plan, I know you have described it actually in detail, but I want to go back to when it was just a concept. What did you hope to achieve? What is that particular, that if we actually get this thing into implementation, this is what we hope should happen maybe in the next 5 years or next year? What is that dream you had while enacting the National Action Plan? Florence?
Okay, so for the National Action Plan, the dream was to have that national paradigm shift to as far as protection of human rights of persons with albinism is concerned, from the national level to reach even the grassroots. Because with the National Action Plan, you know that money will be allocated for its implementation.
And also, if, for example, the civil society organizations, the ministries, we have a document to use that, hey, we have this, need resources to roll it out.
Yeah.
And of course, also the idea was to have SDGs by reaching those on the ground. Yes, so that was basically it.
I can ably also add that the biggest desire is for persons with albinism to live a dignified life.
Yes.
Because, like Florence said, the SDG, leave no one behind, but begin with the farthest. I think we're farther than the farthest. You know, father, I mean, you're not recognized as human beings. I mean, how far can you be? So therein, that we among the farthest, being incorporated in the general development of a country, of the recognition of human rights, that is one huge objective that I believe we're on the right road to seeing the inclusion and people with albinism living a dignified life.
As we come to the end of this podcast, there's something critical I want to touch, and it is the International Albinism Awareness Day.
Yes.
Florence, your office has financially supported this day from 2015. As people on ground, because usually you're people on ground, actually for the past days I've attended, I have not missed Florence, I think. I've already seen Florence somewhere.
Absolutely.
As people on ground, how do such international days like IAD help in supporting or maybe developing policies that actually fight for the rights of persons with albinism?
Okay. Thank you. So such days are advocacy days.
Yes.
So for me, it's a very important day to hit the drums and make whoever is hearing or even not supposed to hear know that
We're here.
yes, persons with albinism are here. They are part of us. They are human beings like us. Okay, and it's important that we support them in our different capacities. If you're an employer, please support them. If you're a parent, please support them. If you're in transport, support them. Why? Because IAA days, we normally structure them in such a way that there are a lot of matches, there are a lot of advocacy tools we develop. We develop flyers, we have fact sheets that talk about albinism. We match, and then we always have high profile personalities come around. Like at the time we used to have the Speaker of Parliament, we used to have the Minister, up to the one we had last year, the different launches. So we structure this in such a way that we started with the respective cities around the country to make sure that we go and march. And you know, it's surprising how people get surprised. Oh, persons with albinism are actually many. Like, you heard what the minister said in last year in 2022. The minister said, you know, persons with albinism are actually many, and I'm going to organize and take some of these students to present to the president, because he needs to know that these people are there and we need to support them. The Speaker of Parliament in one of the international commemorations, I think it was in Mbale, she was shocked to see that actually there are many, because in Mbale, I think one of the unique things that stood out was single mothers. Most of them had been abandoned because at the time, I think Equal Opportunities Commission was even providing legal advice during the day. So the speaker said, no, these people can be supported. We need to plan. And she made an instruction to the National Planning Authority, a verbal instruction to actually support them. So for me, what has stood up for in International Albinism Awareness Day is the advocacy bit of it. Then it also brings donors to appreciate that, yeah, this is something that we can support. For example, at the UN level, UNFPA normally comes on board, you know, and together you see some other work strategically you can do to support albinism. So I think that's what I can say.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. Thank you so much for coming. And to our viewers, also want to thank the leadership and the UN offices of human rights for actually hosting this particular episode at their offices. So I don't know, thank you for those that have actually listened in and those that are viewing. This has been an insightful conversation with the ladies you see me with. That is Olive and Grace. And Florence. Forgive me for that. And until next time, for those that have not yet subscribed, please hit that button or just follow the link at the bottom of your screen. Until next time, have a great day.